There is no doubt in my mind anymore that Activision is a vile, disgusting, garbage company. Activision's earned a lot of goodwill in the past few years thanks to the long-demanded remakes of everybody's favorite PS1 icons, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. After years of waiting, several questionable redesigns, and a whole load of disappointing games, fans finally got their wish, and with very few hitches at that. Crash's Insane Trilogy was a wonderful recreation of Naughty Dog's breakout series, and in spite of the Spyro Reignited trilogy's bumpier launch, Activision and its development teams made sure to make it right and show fans that they had a vested interest in quality and not just profit. And it seemed like things were only getting better with CTR Nitro-Fueled, a ground-up remake of 1999's Crash Team Racing. Not only would this fan favorite be touched up and given full online functionality, developer Beanox shifted things into another gear by adding just about all of the content from CTR's spiritual successor, Crash Nitro Kart, hence the name Nitro-Fueled. With the promise of even more free content on the way after launch, including that long-awaited Spyro crossover, I found myself cautiously optimistic, buying into all of that good PR that Activision's garnered with these remakes. But with just a few key decisions, they've jeopardized all of that. Thanks to its fundamentally broken online matchmaking, and more importantly, a grindy, predatory seasonal content structure that from day one was clearly leading to the microtransactions that Activision is sneaking into the game, Nitro-Fueled has cast a dark shadow over future Crash projects. Speaking of grindy predators, hey Chris.
Is this how you felt during our Team Sonic Racing review? Well, hey, if the shoe fits.
Horrible introductions aside, I don't really have a huge dog in this fight. Crash has never really been a series that's resonated with me personally. That's why I wanted to bring Chris along for this video.
I'm the exact target audience for all of these remakes. With every announcement, my excitement only grew for Nitro-Fueled. I really felt that Beanox was knocking it out of the park, and now after only one season, I barely even want to play it anymore.
So how did Activision poison what was shaping up to be an incredible blast from the past? How could extra content possibly hurt Nitro-Fueled? Today, we're going to highlight exactly how games as a service irrevocably damaged a retro revival. Very quickly, I want to make it clear that I received a press copy of Nitro-Fueled from Activision at the game's launch.
And I didn't, even though I'm the one who actually wanted the game. This is becoming a trend with us.
With that out of the way, let's explain what Nitro-Fueled's Grand Prix events are and how, in their current form, they've laid the foundation for the game's biggest problems.
Announced just a few days before CTR's release, the Grand Prix are short seasons of challenges not dissimilar to the Battle Pass seasons from games like Fortnite, Rocket League, and countless other online games nowadays. By completing a variety of theme challenges or just by playing the game, players earn Nitro points and unlock in-game cosmetics like alternate skins for characters, vehicle paint jobs, new tires, and so on. The promising difference here is that in CTR, all of this content would be available to all players for free without having to pay real-world money for an in-game battle pass. Also, unlike other seasonal content structures, Beanox made it clear that these cosmetics would be available after each Grand Prix ends. Typically in these games, once time runs out, you can't obtain anything you hadn't already unlocked from that season.
This felt like an intelligent compromise, not only adding in optional bonus content to an already content-rich game and a half, but ensuring that you could unlock any of it at your own leisure. Plus, each Grand Prix would permanently introduce an entirely new racetrack for free, so who are we to complain? From the ESPN-inspired intro cutscenes where these weird chicken sportscasters highlight each season's unique features, to the lovingly crafted animations that complement many characters' alternate costumes, it's all presented in a warm, welcoming fashion. And then you finish a race, and it dawns on you. You just earned a whopping 5 Nitro points, regardless of whether you came in first place or last. And then you remember that you need 42,000 points to complete the Grand Prix progression bar.
Now to be fair, that's because you were racing offline. If you race online, even if you just play in a private lobby with friends, you'll earn 10 Nitro points per race. We'll be touching on this game's online focus a little later on. For now, let's just talk about the best way to earn Nitro points, the challenges. These challenges take a few different forms, from rotating daily and weekly ones, to a handful of more difficult ones that match the season's unique theme, but they always net you anywhere from 50 points to nearly 1,000 in one shot. Certainly a far quicker method than the alternative.
So hey, on the surface that sounds pretty great. You're being incentivized for playing the game more and trying out characters, tracks, and modes you may not have used otherwise. These challenges may ask you to do things like play as Ripperoo in Dragon Mines, or play 3 rounds of the Last Kart Driving Battle mode in Skull Rock. Then you come back the next day and the daily challenges are more or less identical. And then a few days later you come back and the weekly challenges reset and you'll notice that they're the same too. And the tedium slowly starts to settle in as you realize that you're just mindlessly grinding away with what are essentially chores in order to unlock a handful of cosmetics. Now to be fair, a few of these challenges, usually in the season-long themed and pro challenge sets, offer some more interesting scenarios, such as hitting an opponent with the explosion of a TNT crate that's on your head, but for the most part these challenges boil down to a few basic formulas. Do this thing as this character on this track, complete this specific race cup, win 10 offline races in cart name B or cart name C. By the way, that one was actually in the game as a placeholder for the entire week as a weekly challenge. I don't know how they didn't notice or care to fix that.
Even though there are times that I can optimize my gameplay and grind out 5 or more challenges in one run, it's still just that. A grind, and it really wears on you after a few days. And that's even with Beanox throwing a bone at players. Most of the new costumes, characters, carts, and so on in any given season have a tacked on stackable Nitro Point booster. Instead of earning 5 points per offline race like we mentioned before, rocking a Season 1 character, cart, wheels, and or paint job can give you up to 50% more points on all of those races and challenges, except it rounds down, so you only get 7 points per race instead of 7.5 or 8.
I know that sounds so minuscule, but after days upon days of playing, it really does add up. And after days upon days of playing only the correct game modes again and again, with only your most optimal character and gear setup to earn the most points, it just sucks the life out of the game. Why would I work on finishing the optional challenges in the game's adventure mode when that conflicts with my Grand Prix progression?
At this point, I'd like to note that in order to give these Grand Prix a fair shot before we formed our full opinions, we both completed Season 1, also known as Nitro Tour. After several weeks of grinding, often every day, we hit Nitro Tour's gold tier and earned just over 42,000 points in doing so. Just over is the key phrase because neither of us wanted to play past the first several hundred races. By the end, we were actively dreading playing the game. It seems we weren't alone either. At the end of Nitro Tour's event, out of over 1.2 million people that played CTR on PS4, only about 40,000 hit that final gold rank. Obviously, not everybody is going to, or even should, complete a season in these sorts of living games, but that just feels criminally low. While that's exemplary of the tedium of the Nitro Point system, since nobody seems to want to play the game Activision is aiming for here, we're only just scratching the surface.
While you can unlock a handful of seasonal characters, carts, and cosmetics through the Grand Prix checklist, each new season also introduces additional content to the Pit Stop, the in-game store where you can spend in-game currency called Wumpa coins. Get used to checking this a lot, because every day you can earn an easy 100 Nitro points just by checking the Pit Stop, and I want you to remember that for later. You get Wumpa coins for winning races, battles, playing online, etc., essentially playing the game in any way whatsoever. Even before Season 1 started, the Pit Stop had a good selection of optional content. Whether it be characters from Nitro Kart, very well made alternate costumes, new decals, new carts, all presented within this catered storefront where usually only one of each kind of item is offered in total.
Instead of just scrolling through a master list and spending Wumpa coins on what you actually want to unlock, you have to either wait for what you want to be offered in the store, or spend your coins on what's currently on offer and hope what you actually want takes its place. Since, like with Nitro points, you get a pretty paltry amount of coins with the game's offline modes, the most efficient way to earn them by far is to play online, where you earn way more per race thanks to a daily 5x coin multiplier for the first half hour you play. On top of that, every Thursday to Sunday features a weekend double coin bonus on all online races. Ideally, these features would incentivize players to play online and adapt their skills against human players, thus keeping the game alive longer.
This is where Activision's beloved microtransactions really break the dam wide open. Starting with the second Grand Prix, Beanox is implementing a way to spend real-life money in exchange for Wumpa coins for those who are impatient or anxious about missing out on specific items that they want. And let's be clear here, this game has been intentionally designed as a coin grind to make you impatient so that you're more likely to cave and fork over more cash. Let's go back to the pit stop for a moment, because don't forget you can earn 100 Nitro points every single day by checking the store here, the very same store where you'll now be able to spend real money on fake money. Unlocking characters in the pit stop takes anywhere from 1500 coins to 2500, and everything else is similarly steep in price. Offline races will only earn you about 40 coins or less on 70% of this game's tracks. So you're either going to want to fork over some money, or you're really going to want to play online for those 5 times and 2 times multipliers.
However, this game inexplicably has no skill-based matchmaking and currently has no announced plans for it, meaning that who you match up with online is 100% random. I can guarantee that almost everybody that's played online within even their first few races has encountered players so dedicated at CTR that they've finished a race by the time you've even started lap 3. And none of the game's weapons and items have a chance at narrowing that large of a skill gap.
This can be absolutely deflating for anyone just trying to have a good time, which, as we saw by the first Grand Prix's paltry completion rate, is the vast majority of Nitro-Fueled's player base. It's one thing to lose a thrilling race by just a few seconds. It's another thing entirely, though, when third place and lower all earn a did not finish result because there's one guy playing pro ball in a Little League lobby. This is a situation that happened to each of us several times, and by the time we were done with Season 1, I would say we were pretty adept at the game.
Now, I'm not going to go all the way with this thought and say that Activision intentionally designed a broken, unfair, unfun matchmaking system so that discouraged players would be even more incentivized to purchase Wumpa coins, but it definitely seems like a happy byproduct of them not doing so.
Actually, I am gonna go all that way. They've happily trotted out a microtransaction announcement before even acknowledging whether they would even want to implement ranked or not. It's just a gross misappropriation of priorities.
And once you start to put all of these pieces together, it begins to feel even more disgusting. Looking at the first 3 Grand Prix events for Nitro-Fueled, this second Grand Prix is absolutely and deliberately the weak link. Nitro Tour came out right after the game's launch, as the game was riding high on that aforementioned goodwill that Activision was holding on to, and the first season featured highly requested characters like Tana and the Nitro Squad, aka the Trophy Girls from the original CTR. And the third season fulfills a dream so many of us had as kids, to see Crash and Spyro cross over in their prime. And no, we are not counting those GBA games.
But the second Grand Prix, Back in Time, has that dinosaur from the Crash 3 cover. Sure, okay, sort of barrel scraping, whatever, but Baby Crash? Baby Coco? With the flack that Mario Kart has gotten over including baby characters in the past, those two specifically make it so apparent that this season was consciously designed to be less appealing to players in order to most easily sneak in these microtransactions.
That way, in the eyes of those that return to CTR or those that are jumping in for the first time for Spyro in Season 3, these were just part of the game. It just plain hurts how obvious this plan was. I'm willing to let the matchmaking point we mentioned slide and call it coincidence, but I can't let myself write this one off.
It just sucks, and I'm only as confident as I am that this is intentional because it's almost one-to-one exactly how Activision has handled things with Call of Duty as well. They release the game, pull in great reviews and high sales with little controversy, and once the media cycle is over and everybody's moved on to the next big thing except for the mega fans, they slip these paid options in when there are fewer people paying attention to make a fuss over it. By the way, guess which team was responsible for introducing microtransactions and loot boxes into Modern Warfare Remastered a year after that game came out? Beanox.
Now, yes, one could argue that the pricing structure may not even be all that bad. It may actually be incredibly generous, we don't know yet. I'm personally inclined to doubt it since they snuck this in through the back door after launch. But hey, maybe it will be immensely advantageous toward the consumer. If that becomes the case, sure. Any adult could make an informed decision about whether to buy some Wumpa coins or not.
To that point, I would like to note that in Season 2, there's already evidence of Beanox manipulating the coin value of items in the pit stop. While in and before Season 1, the big bundled item didn't cross 5,500 coins, the storefront for Back in Time is already featuring bundles of the same number of items that cost nearly 10,000 coins. The pricing structure of microtransactions and whether they're fair or not stops mattering entirely in this equation when they're willing to jack up the price of items even more to get you to fork over that real-world money. But why don't we bring all of these problematic building blocks together with the single worst keystone imaginable, one that holds this whole predatory structure together? Even though CTR was positioned as a lovingly crafted, fan-focused retro revival in all of its pre-release press coverage, and even though Activision and Beenox lied by omission when ignoring the obvious plans for adding these microtransactions in, and even though they clearly designed the Grand Prix events and the coin payouts as a grindy and tedious combo package so as to incentivize those microtransactions when they were eventually roped into the mix, and even though they blatantly designed Season 2 to be the weakest one in order to make a perfect breeding ground in which to launch those microtransactions, this was still a 20-year-old game at its core, and thus its audience would be adults who understood the cost of any potential purchases.
However, let's just be real here. We all know that these games are still being marketed towards kids. We've already seen that there's an upcoming cross-promotion with both Sour Patch Kids and Trident Vibes Gum, and I have absolutely no doubt that there's more in the pipeline. With this promotion, a kid can buy a specially marked bag of Sour Patch Kids and get exclusive in-game content for Nitro-Fueled. I mean, kids is right in the candy's name. I want to be more hopeful here than Bolt, but even I can't deny that this is specifically designed to get children's foot in the door in terms of wanting to purchase these cosmetic items.
Activision absolutely wants kids to nag their parents to buy them in-game currency, or even better, just accidentally buy a ton of it themselves. And yes, of course parents should have their credit card info locked behind a password on consoles, but that doesn't excuse Activision and Beenox for attempting it here. I would go as far to say that if Nitro-Fueled wasn't rated E10+, that if it were instead a rated M game like Call of Duty, we would almost certainly be seeing a Wumpa crate mechanic tossed into the mix too, where for a small payment of Wumpa coins you can unlock items randomly far cheaper than just buying them in the store. Maybe they would even include a Nitro Point bonus multiplier in these Wumpa crates. The fact is that Activision continues to intentionally sneak in these additional attempts at monetization into their games long after they've already taken our money. As another friend of mine, Rackrox, ranted to me just a few days ago,
Activision thinks they get to have their cake and eat it too, and the sad fucking part about all of it is they're right. If you bought the game, they have your money, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it despite the fact that they lied. And make no mistake, that's what they did. They lied.
If we cannot make an informed decision about a purchase, even though it will be fundamentally, irrevocably changed in the span of 2 months, then Activision has failed to hold up its end of the transaction. Even as somebody who got a press copy, and I fully expect that I won't be getting press copies from Activision after they see this video, I was already about to buy it before I received that copy solely because of all of the optimism that Chris brought to our conversations about the game. If this all came out and I had spent money on this game, I would have fought tooth and nail for a full refund by any means necessary. And the thing is, Activision does this again and again and again with their games, pushing out underhanded scams when nobody is looking and hoping that we'll just turn a blind eye to it because Overwatch is fun. And make no mistake, I don't blame Beenox for any of this necessarily. They're just the ones pulling the trigger. If they didn't do it, Activision would have found another team that would have. Activision lied no fewer than 2 times about Modern Warfare Remastered, once with the inclusion of microtransactions that they swore would only be cosmetic, only to lie again by later adding in new weapons in those same loot boxes. I can guarantee that if I know anything about this company, they've already knowingly lied once about CTR, even if we don't know it yet. And to take this business model and have manipulated it not only into a franchise like Crash Bandicoot, but to aim that very model at kids? No, that is too far. Because of this, there is no doubt in my mind anymore that Activision is a vile, disgusting, garbage company, and it absolutely didn't have to be this way. If they'd put in the absolute bare minimum effort into making this seasonal content, fun, instead of thinking of ways to exploit its audience, we were ready to praise this just as we did with Crash and Spyro's original remakes. If Activision cares equally about ethically interacting with its player base as much as it cares about its profit, there are ways to balance this. Even if we pretend that microtransactions had to be included here for the sake of arguing in good faith with a company that clearly argues in bad faith every single day, there are still many good solutions to these problems.
These solutions range from brain-dead obvious to far more of a tightrope act, but this is a multi-billion-dollar company that releases some of the most successful games in history every single year.
In fact, starting with Season 2, they've even taken one of our would-be suggestions into account by allowing some non-seasonal content to have that bonus Nitro Point multiplier. It's not much, but it's certainly a start.
Encouraging, or perhaps allowing, Beenox to implement proper matchmaking where your skill level determines coin payouts would incentivize you to learn the game organically, instead of punishing you for coming in second and never even having a chance to finish the race due to no-lifers.
Making those double coin weekends into global events rather than locking them solely to the broken online mode would allow players to truly experience the entire game, since you could play offline and earn just as much.
Hell, lump Nitro points into those events to show that the Grand Prix aren't just there as a way to milk profit out of the whales. Double hell! Just rebalance the economy around single-player content so that playing offline is enough to cover basic cosmetics like carts and whatnot, and let the multiplayer act as a way to earn even more coins so that you can get that exact perfect paint and tire combination that you wanted.
For the Grand Prix, why not include some more varied incentives instead of just asking players to win on Crash Cove constantly as Ripperoo? So far, Season 2 hasn't added much that's really new by way of challenges, so I'm gonna guess we're out of luck on that one. Or, just let players buy whatever they want from the pit stop whenever they want to, instead of this better hope you get lucky mentality that only forces players to check back constantly as you plaster your quote-unquote sales of massive Wumpa coin packs. And of course, basic transparency would go so far in this had they just announced up front that the game would have microtransactions like we all expected it would. But then that might hurt the game's sales and Activision wouldn't get to eat its cake and exploit it too, so that's unreasonable apparently.
None of this feels great. Putting aside the immensely disappointing practices around this Grand Prix mode, the core game of CTR is still a lot of fun. It's remembered well for a reason, and this remake even got me to appreciate the Nitro Kart tracks, ones I didn't really care much for growing up. But this singular decision cast a shadow on this game and on any Crash or Spyro project moving forward. Any and all future projects, whether they be more remakes or original entries, can and likely will now implement these underhanded tactics to get at your wallet. Like we stated at the start of this video, the Insane and Reignited trilogies felt like outliers in Activision's portfolio. Very well made, lovingly crafted remakes of games that were loved by many and happened to be released at a price that made them a great value too. There were basically no negatives aside from nitpicks. As a fan, this single decision has me concerned for how they view these franchises. Pulling this out to look at the bigger picture, I now have to wonder if Activision's strategy with CTR was indicating their plan with these series all along. I just don't feel great about the future for these series. I'm sure some will look at the conversation around these additional purchases and think, if you don't like them, just ignore them. Ignoring them is my plan, but that doesn't excuse the practice.
How can we have confidence in these classic series if 2 months down the road, these same games are going to try and exploit us? How are they even going to work in exploitation in more traditional single-player Crash and Spyro games? Is it even possible that we'll see those, or will we see something that's a shell of these series' original forms, something closer to the Skylander series that Beenox has also worked on? These are questions that we have to ask now, because all of that goodwill that Activision had is gone now, and fans just have to hope that millions of people buying a video game is enough of an incentive for Activision to leave it well enough alone after launch. Knowing this company's love of loot boxes and exploiting its player base, especially children, that's not a gamble that I would take. This video was made possible in part thanks to the generous support of these Patreon backers. If you'd like to see your name on this list, you can do so by supporting the channel at patreon.com/thegoldenbolt. Thank you.